Welcome to the Atlanta Men's Workshop speaker and workshop recordings. Atlanta Men's Workshop is held every spring and fall at the Rock Eagle 4-H campus in Eatonton, Georgia. That's just about an hour east of Atlanta, Georgia. Please visit our website at atlantamensworkshop.com or see the link below to find dates and details to join us. Partial scholarships are available to those in need. We hope you enjoy this presentation, and we hope you will come join us at the Rock. Until then, we shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Let's open this meeting with a serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you for that. Guys, I talked earlier about, the rock, being at the Rock and the nuggets and the hearing the stuff here. When I came to my first Rock, it made all the difference in the world to me because I heard these speakers and I heard these nuggets, pieces of information that would change my perspective on the world. What y'all have taught me here and what I've learned through time is that in my experience, all recovery is a change in perspective. The world out there is not going to change. My wife's going to be who she's going to be. My job's going to be what it's going to be, or lack thereof. My finances, good or bad, are going to be what they are. If I want to have some peace, serenity, healthy self-esteem, and healthy self-respect, what's got to change? Me and the way I look at myself, especially early in recovery. I need to learn to be easy on myself, but hold myself accountable to do the work of this program. But then how do I look at everything else out there in the world? And if that's not going to change and I want to be comfortable in my own skin, what needs to change? Me and the way I look at all this stuff. And that's the change in perspective that the 12 steps gave me. And coming to this Rock and listening to the speakers gave me. So you're in for a treat this morning. There are 3 really good speakers. The first speaker is Dwayne K. And Dwayne is one of the examples of this. He came to an earlier workshop and it clicked for him. And he's been in the middle doing the deal of recovery. And so I'm very excited to hear what he has to say this morning. Dwayne?
All right. Good morning, Rock Eagle. How we doing? Thank you, Bill, and thank you everybody that chose to get up out of bed and come participate in their recovery. One of the great nuggets I like is recovery requires my participation. It's a little nerve-wracking. 10 minutes ago, I was cool, calm, and collected. What happened? What happened? My name is Dwayne. I am an alcoholic. I'm glad to be here, grateful to be here, grateful to be sober, grateful to be around a bunch of sober people. I'm also a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, in good standing, I think. I have a sponsor. I've got the great privilege of sponsoring other guys. I do have a home group, 12-Step Titans, Monday nights at Biscayne Room. Got any Titans in here? I see a few. Great group Monday nights at Biscayne Room. If anybody's from Atlanta area wants to check it out, 8 p.m. That meeting, like Bill was talking about, this workshop, that meeting, and a few other things has made a great difference in my life. So my sobriety date, I have one, which is really cool. I was one of those guys that I did not ever think that I would have one of those. I had a bunch of temporary ones, and that's all I thought I would ever get. My sobriety date is March 23rd, 2024. If that sounds familiar, it should. That was on this day at the Last Rock. That's when I picked up my white chip on Saturday. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So cool. You guys know that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. So what it was like, I was one of those guys, like I said, that anybody relates with that. It did for me something that I had never experienced. I was, one of these kids that never quite fit in. How many of us have heard that before? Who can relate to that? I wasn't, in with the popular kids, or didn't quite fit in with the ones that wore really baggy clothes and spiked their hair up and wore a bunch of punk band T-shirts and stuff like that. I always thought, people like that were cool. I just didn't relate. Didn't fit in with the athletes, even though I was one from time to time. Still didn't quite fit in until I found alcohol. It did something for me, made me feel a part of, which was something I had always yearned to feel. So first drink was a spiritual experience. I wanted to feel like that as often as possible, whenever I could. Looking back, I must have been an alcoholic before I even took that drink, because it was a solution to how I felt sober. And I looking back, I must have developed that mental obsession and that physical allergy right away. As much as I thought about drinking, I was always the kid that was trying to get my hands on some booze. And all the rest of my friends like to drink too a little bit, but not like me. I was always the one saying, "Hey, let's get drunk." And I could see the look on their faces. Sometimes they'd be like, "Oh, here we go again. Dwayne's going to get crazy." And I did, almost every time, without fail. I was a guy that was drinking, I had a friend that would take water bottles and fill them up with Bacardi Gold. I don't know if anybody's ever drank that before. Stuff is rough. And his stepdad kept handles of it up under the sink, and every now and then I would be able to talk him in to go fill up one of these with it. And that was awesome. That made my day when we were able to accomplish that. And then I remember one time I snatched and I drank the whole thing in one gulp. And I loved it. Loved the effect produced. I wanted more of it. I was never able to stop when I wanted to. I ended up, trying this thing a few times. I never really clicked. Sober living after sober living, rehab after rehab. I don't have a bunch of time to get into my whole story like I would like to. I could talk for a long time. I love talking about my favorite subject, which is me. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. I'm sure there are a few, whether you'll admit it or not. So, started going this process of getting sober, or getting dry, and wanting to get sober, and not being able to do it. I found out that there is actually direct instructions of how to do it. But that seemed like something I was not willing to do. I did not want to do what you guys did. I wanted to do it my way. I was different. And I saw, when I came around, I started seeing you guys that were really sober. And I kind of halfway believed you, But in my sick mind, it's like, hey, there's no way that guy hasn't had a drink in 30 years. There's just no way. I couldn't do that. How could he? Drinking on the side. Got to be. And then I found out that for a real alcoholic, that would be next to impossible. So I'm grateful for all the guys that got 30 years and stayed sober and did this before us, for me. But for me, I had this relationship with alcohol that I just knew was different than what you guys had. Alcohol was some people would say my ride or die, right? Alcohol was my best friend. I had this deep relationship with alcohol that you guys wouldn't understand. See, that's why I couldn't get sober, and you guys can, because you're not like me. And I found out that I'm just not that special. And my relationship with alcohol, you guys most of you had similar relationships with it. Once I found that out, had a little hope. See, it's coming to places like this, it's coming to meetings and hear people tell their story that led me to learn that. Whoa, thought I was the only one that thought like that. Whoa, thought I was the only one that felt like that. Nah, man, you're not alone. You're not unique. That's one of the cool things about this. So, I'll tell one quick story. I went to the sober living. I'm not going to name it. It's in Marietta. Went to rehab first. I was, the guy in rehab and then I was preaching to the choir. I was preaching. I was a guy doing the deal in the rehab. I was Mr. Rehab. And they made me like a mentor and all this. Gave me a little bracelet. I was the man, in my own mind and stuff like that. But I wasn't really learning anything about how to stay sober. I was learning all these mental processes and stuff like that, which are great tools. The book does say that the main problem of the alcoholic centers in the mind rather than the body. That is, so we're saying our problem in our mind is greater than our problem in the body, but the real problem is this whole spiritual malady. So once that is overcome, then I can straighten out physically and mentally. And that's when all those cool tools come into play. But I got to straighten out spiritually first. And, for the things like the CBT and the cool stuff like that, get to play a role. Otherwise, I'm not going to want to use that stuff, and I'm not going to. And I didn't. Tengu, I got about, sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but got about 30 days sober, and I wasn't working any type of program. I was kind of half measures type approach. On a Thursday, I decided that I was not an alcoholic. I did not belong. I did not belong with you guys. I did not belong in sober living. And somebody that is not an alcoholic can drink, right? So that seemed like a good idea. Since I'm not an alcoholic, let's have a few drinks, because I can do that now. Not well. So I'm just this guy. I'm just this alcoholic drinking and sober living with no plan, thinking I'm not an alcoholic. What am I going to do? They're going to kick me out. I can't drink and sober living, but I've got no plan of where I'm going to go next. I'm just getting drunk. That's insanity. And I did get caught because all I did, once I picked one up, I can't stop. So all I did was get drunk from that moment. And I had all these delusions, right? But in all actuality, everybody around me was just saying, holy crap, Dwayne is on one. And I was. On a Thursday, I started drinking, got kicked out Saturday morning. Saturday night, I was in jail. On my third DUI. I don't know if anyone's had any of those, but it's not fun. The third one is especially rough. I don't know how much time I have or how much time I've already used, but there's much more I want to say about that. But think about this: Saturday morning, to get kicked out of sober living. By that night, I'm in jail. You know, that is the insanity of this thing. That is the mental obsession. Once I pick one up, I can't stop. Unless an outside force has acted upon me. You know, it's like a dice roll. I pick one up, I may drink 10 and fall asleep. I may pick one up and find myself in jail, or I may end up in a hospital bed. I've been 10, 13 out of a motel room before and spent some time in the psych ward. That was fun. So I kept this process of like, trying this thing and half measures and failing and ending up back in these terrible situations where my life was on fire, and I had to do something about it. And one of those times was back in March of this year. I had gone to do a little bit of time in jail. Imagine that. I was on probation in several different counties, DUIs, and things like that. And I was lying to my probation officer. Imagine that. Telling him I was staying sober, and I was graduating all these sober livings that I was actually, in fact, getting kicked out of for drinking. And had a nice lawyer that was lying for me as well. And in my mind, I'm like, well, he's the one lying, not me. So I'm working a program. Like, he might need to get with his higher power and figure that out, but I'm good. So, anyways, all that stuff culminated, and the wreckage of my past caught up to me once again. My probation officer started, he found out I was in yet another program, and he was like, okay, what is going on with this guy? So he started checking my story, and I was like, uh-oh. He started calling all these places and finding out the truth, and it wasn't good, not for me. So he ended up calling me. I had this great job I'd gotten, had a lot of good stuff going on. And Dwayne, you got to go to jail, turn yourself in Monday. I'm giving you till Monday, otherwise we're just going to start looking for you. So, okay, a lot of pity, a lot of self-pity going on. God. And I worked a lot of this in my fist up. Man, it was the state of Georgia was just after me, man. They did not want to see me succeed. And I got drunk. But I came out, I came out of that situation. I remember I was in another motel room. I know I like to do this thing where I get motel rooms and go in there and just get, all kind of sordid things and happen in there. And mostly me drinking myself to oblivion and near death. I remember one time I was in one of these situations, and I never quite got suicidal, but I didn't care if I didn't wake up, right? I was never like standing on the edge of a bridge or anything like that. Like, unfortunately, it happens and will happen, But I hadn't got to that point yet. But I definitely did not care whether I lived or died. And I remember at one point I was sitting on the edge of a bed, just completely intoxicated, completely obliterated. And I had just DoorDashed a big bottle, I meant to get a pint, but a fifth showed up, and I remember sitting there thinking, like, that is enough to do the trick right there, because I'm already obliterated. if I was to just chug that whole thing right here, and I probably wouldn't wake up. So I remember thinking that. Terrible. I love my life today. I would not want to do something so that would affect, everybody so tragically, my friends and family, and things like that. See, I'm selfish and self-centered. So I don't care how that's going to affect everyone else. Today I do. So I get out of that motel room, and I'm supposed to be here. I'd signed up to come here on the 22nd. Instead, I was in a motel room doing what alcoholics do, practicing ones. And I remember waking up on Saturday morning, and I'd had enough. I was beat down. I was pitiful. Incomprehensible demoralization. Once again, everything that alcohol promised me, all the things that I thought I was going to gain from it was a lie. Here I was sitting there alone, afraid, hopeless. So I knew I did the only thing I knew to do, was call my sponsor. What do I do? How do I get out of this mess? I'm miserable. And he said, come down to the Rock. It's not too late. Just come on down here. So, it's like everything in my being, every fiber of my being wanted to go up to the front desk, get another night. It was Saturday, right? Get another night, go get another bottle, and start it again. Just drown out all this stuff. Just drown it out the best I can. We got two options. We can do that, or we can accept spiritual help. So that's what I chose to do today, is go see about some of this that day, is go see about some of this spiritual help. And I remember I got here, it was incredible. Bill met me up front, and we went and had this great talk. I think he could see in me that I was in bad shape, and maybe sufficiently broken enough, for some type of change to occur. So we, had a talk like, hey, this is what I suggest for you to do. And I would have done anything. But the cool part was the suggestions were not unreasonable. Not as unreasonable as they seemed in the past. And I remember being in this room on that Saturday night, and they did the sobriety countdown thing, and I was the guy, right? I was the one that had the least amount of time. I was that guy. And it can be difficult for us sometimes to remember that shame and embarrassment and humiliation of even a few weeks or a month ago the book talks about. And that is so true. We get a little time back, we get a little thing, a little something going for us, and we forget about all that. I do, easily. But I can still remember back to that day and remember how just the shame and I felt about this big at this place. And look at all you giants, with all this sobriety. Like, you guys can do it. I can't. That sucks. I suck. But I'll never forget when I stood up and I had the least amount of time in the room, the applause I received. And I was blown away by that. I was like, why am I getting congratulated? Why am I being applauded for screwing up? And then I understood. It was just like, I was in the right place. And you guys got to see what it would be like for you if you made the same mistake I made and picked up. And I got to, I will never forget that grace that I was shown that night. That was a vital spiritual experience. And I've had a few of those. The book says as necessary. And that is part of the magic of this program. These spiritual experiences, I'm always looking out for them, and really greatly enjoy it when I do get to experience something like that. And this is just such a cool journey. I mean, you know, I'm looking forward to what's next. My sponsor always says, if I make this stuff the most important thing I do every day, it just gets better and it gets better, and it doesn't stop getting better. And that's been my experience. I've got like 6 months, and you know, well, what it's like now. I've got 6 months sober. You know, all those legal problems. I was like in probation, 3 different counties, just paralyzed with anxiety about all that. Facing jail time all the time. No driver's license. I mean, and then when I was able to finally get this limited permit thing, you know, I had to jump through all these hoops and put the breathalyzer, the interlock device. I got this now. This is a Georgia driver's license. How about that? That's incredible. That's incredible. Okay, now, for a 36-year-old person, and maybe not the greatest accomplishment to the rest of the world, right? But here you guys get it. You guys understand why I'm so excited to have a Georgia driver's license. And the blow thing is out of my truck. Had that for a long time. Had that for like over a year. Paid a good amount of money for that thing every month, and glad to see it go. I've graduated from my program now. I graduated from a sober living. Who would have thought, right? Never did that before. Been to a bunch of them. I was always the guy that got drunk and left. And now I get to graduate, and I get to see all my friends graduating. And I mean, it's emotional. I get to see, I get to see them go move on to the next step. Some are getting apartments and moving on to the next stage of life and doing what normal people do. You know, I'm actually a good employee now. That's crazy. Anyways, I've got so much I could talk about, but I really appreciate you guys having me up here. And if you're new here, you happen to be new here, you know, suit up, show up. The sky is the limit. Thank you.
I am Gus. I am an alcoholic. By the grace and mercy of a God, my understanding, I have not had a drink since November 20th of 2012. And that's a miracle. You know, man, it's such an amazing experience to be here, especially up here in this podium. I'm a member of the alumni group. You know, we meet twice a week in Athens, Georgia. I have a sponsor who made it here today, just for me. It blew my mind. His name's Randy Parsons, and he means the world to me. I didn't think he'd be here today, but he showed up. So the story I had in my head, I'm gonna have to like trash it out because, you know, it's not gonna work. He knows the truth, so, you know, I'm gonna avoid all that. One of the important things for me to do when coming up on the podium is to qualify. You know, I am an alcoholic, and I burned my life down to the ground multiple times. And in those crash and burns, I realized there's many levels of hell. You know, I've lived through every single one of them, barely sometimes. One time I got stabbed 9 times, and I was laying in the hospital bed in Elmhurst Hospital, New York. And they had told my mother I had died on the operating table. See, a lot of us think that we're only hurting ourselves. We hurt everybody around us. You know, alcoholism is a family sport. Everybody gets to play. They do. You know, my poor mother and my father, but my father understood because he's one of us. My poor mother, I put her through a lot. For the first time when during my escapades, you know, I wound up in Rikers Island, and she came to visit me. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have ever visited Rikers Island, but it's like Alcatraz, you know. And watching her looking at me through that plexiglass was brutal. But that's what we do. You know, for the grace of God, I don't have to go there anymore. You know, the cool thing is that, you know, I get to wear a suit coming up here today, but the only time I wore a suit was when I was in trouble going up in front of a judge. But one thing I did get to do today was I ate out of a plastic tray, which I swore I'd never eat out of a plastic tray. You know? Another thing I don't like is I don't look good in stripes, and those orange slippers they have here in the South for inmates, that's terrible. You know, and I wish to never have to wear something like that ever again. So, I drank because I liked the effect produced by alcohol. I just loved it. I enjoyed it, you know. And in that big book, it explained to me why I drank the way I did. You know, I believe as a kid, I was restless, irritable, and discontented, you know, way before I took that first drink. You know, because like the last speaker had spoken, I was one of the guys with the spiky hair and the DCs, and I used to skate. That's how I met Lewis, you know, but I was awkward. I was very timid and shy, you know. I was afraid of people, even though I didn't look like it, but I was. The only thing that would take that away is that ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks. And I chased that euphoria for 20 semi-years, you know. And as the progression caught up with me, which it does, you know, I'd wound up in institutions. You know, for some reason, I had these detoxes, you know, categorized by which one had the best food and which one had the most comfortable bed, or, you know, this other one, they had, you know, great nurses. So every time I would find out that I was going to another detox, usually because I was in jail, I'd be like, can I go to Flushing Hospital? That place is great, you know? But Alcoholics Anonymous would show up, you know, to bring a meeting in there, and I would hide under the bed because I didn't want what you guys had. Because one of the things was that I did not want to admit that I was an alcoholic. My dad was the alcoholic. The guy sleeping under the bridge is the alcoholic, but I was not. You know, I felt like I still had it together, you know. But even though my life was unmanageable, you know, because normal people do not, you know, go check out, you know, detox centers and rehabs and, you know, over and over, you know. But through trial and error, you know, I started really seeing where I had gone wrong, you know, and to thy own self be true. It wasn't until I stepped into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm fortunate that I've had really good teachers, really, really good teachers. Matter of fact, one of them's up there. I don't know if he's recording or not, but Tim, he helped me get started with this journey this time around, Tim Ridgway. You know, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous helped me find God because I was dying inside. The first time I stepped foot in Alcoholics Anonymous was in a church basement in Sunnyside, Queens, New York. And I was just fresh out of treatment, and it was a gentleman from Ireland who was sharing. And I said to myself, I want what he has. And I'm fortunate enough that he was a big book guy. He didn't waste no time taking me through the steps. You know, and the first question he asked me is, are you willing to go to any lengths for victory over alcohol? And I said, yes. He said, I want you to meet me the next day at this group called The Way Out. And it was a big book study. And I'll tell you, I sat down and, man, when everybody was sharing, it sounded like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but it was life-saving information. You know, and the first time we sat down and he started reading the book to me because I was in such bad shape, I couldn't even hold the big book. because I was going through withdrawals. And he was very patient with me, but at the same time, he was very stern, and now I'm grateful for that, because I probably would have took my own life. I put a few months together, and my parents had moved down here in 2005, and they got into some financial trouble, and I moved down in 2006. And my old sponsor, Adrian, called me up, and he said, well, there's a meeting at 8:30 on Chase Street. The group's called the Biscayne Group. I said, all right, I'll be there. So somehow I got lost in that little area trying to get from my parents' house to the Biscayne room, and I pulled up to this bakery, and I asked the lady where the Biscayne room is, and she goes, that's where all the drunks and drug addicts go. Resentment number one in Athens, Georgia. She said that in front of a bunch of people, so I was very embarrassed, and I showed up, and I got there a little early, and I met Lewis, And luckily, I made friends pretty quickly in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous in Athens, Georgia. That's where I met Randy Parsons and a few others. And needless to say, I stuck around for a little while, clinged on to the fellowship. Oh, let me set my phone. I left it down there. And I managed to pull together 22 months. But during those 22 months, all I did was just the fellowship. I quit reading my big book. I quit helping others. Things became more important to me. Money, property, and prestige. Kills us alcoholics, And I got drunk. A series of events beyond my control, and I asked for help, but I was once again at square one. And that night, after the Biscayne meeting, I went downtown Athens and got annihilated. And that's how I drank. I was not the one that would sit there and take a shot and hang out for a little while. I drank like alcohol was going to evaporate right that second. And I drank for oblivion. Always did. Even from the first time I drank, I got drunk and I was just blacked out. And because I've always been a bit extreme. I always have, I'm a nut job. So after some legal stuff, I can identify with your story because I had the trifecta, I called it. I had probation in Clark County, Oconee County, and Morgan County, which it's right down there. So, between all the court cases that I had, the sheriff's department would bounce me around. And one time they lost me. I got left in Clark County. I was supposed to be in Morgan County, and they're like, you escaped? I didn't escape. They just was spinning me around in so many circles that they lost track of what courthouse I needed to be in, And that's just, what I would do. I would raise hell everywhere I went. The last one was the one that got me. That November 19th, 2012, that last DUI, and I was in rehab at the time. I burned my life down to the ground in 4 hours, lost everything. This was in Atlanta. Crazy, man, 4 hours. Usually it would take me a few months, but this one was like, it's got to be in the Guinness Book of World Records. Because I started drinking at 6, and at 10 o'clock I was already in the Doraville Police Department. I had lost it all. Every piece of clothing, my job, my car, the marriage, everything went crashing down. And then when I landed at the DeKalb County Jail, I knew the gig was up. For the first time in this journey, I had surrendered. See, the other times I just came here just to get relief and get the probation officer off my back, get my mother off my back, get the wife off my back, and just to please everybody. I never came in here with the intentions of really fully working all 12 steps. I just wanted the heat to calm down. I got on my knees on that cold, cold jail cell, sleeping on that metal slab. And I asked God to have all of me. That was the beginning. I still remember that to this day, you know. And after a few weeks of sitting in there, this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous shows up at the pod I was in. And for years I didn't know who sent it, but I found out, and I started working the steps immediately by myself. So one of the things that I needed to do when I was released is to get a sponsor. And I asked this one gentleman named Roy S., and he took me through the steps, and he was really busy. I felt like I was dying, so I asked Randy to sponsor me. After my first year of sobriety, I joined the alumni group. You know, I started following Randy's footsteps, which led me here to Rock Eagle, you know, and to other places. Because I've learned one thing is to watch people's feet, you know. And I'll tell you, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, illustrated in the big book, has taught me how to have a relationship with God, have a relationship with myself, and have a relationship with others. Because I thought it was all about me, and it's not about me. Because my purpose is to fit myself to be of service to God and the people about us. That's what this whole thing is about. You know, I wanted to be served, but that's not the case. I'm a servant today, working on that cook's crew. You know, it's taught me a lot. You know, the 12 steps have transformed my life. That it is absolutely remarkable. You know, if I can go ever into detail and tell you my whole life story, you're like, oh my God, how did this guy do it? Step 1 through 12. You know, trust God, clean house, and help others. Vital. You know, by the grace of God, you know, I live a life that is absolutely mind-blowing. It is. I can't complain. I'm grateful. You know. For when I first came in, it was all about relief. It's not about relief. You know, it's about freedom. It's not about change. It's about transformation. That's what's happened to me, working the first 164 pages with a sponsor. You know, getting involved in service. Vital. You know, and I've heard you can't keep it unless you give it away. It's true. Because I've taught me through my past that whatever I put in front of my sobriety, I will lose. Because Randy has also taught me one valuable lesson. Don't let the gifts that you have received in AA be the gifts that take you out of AA. And with that, thank you for letting me share.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Scott, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date's October 10th, 1986. And I'm grateful to be here. I've been to 70-something of these things. Never actually stood up here for this long. Usually I'm reading or something. There are two fantastic stories that have been going to be told this morning. One of them is the one I told you while I was sitting over there. The second one is the one I wish I'd have told you when I sit back down. So we're going to see how the one in the middle goes. This is a hard one to sum up life, you know, in 20 minutes. It's thank you for the first two speakers. That was really good. I always like to just try to elaborate a little bit on each step, and I was thinking about the first step, and I was like, man, you know, I was 17 when I got sober, and I'm looking around, and I'm still hanging on to that phase, man. I'm hoping this is just a phase, all right? And everybody around me literally is dying of drug addiction and alcoholism, and there was one guy, Craig Allen, and he actually got out, right? I mean, he made it out of all the madness that we're all living in as these adolescents, and man, I'm like, I'm going to be like Craig. I'm going to be like Craig. And I was never going to be like Craig. My mom tricked me into a treatment center when I was right before I turned 18, while she still had some control over me, and I went in there. I remember going in there, and I did not mean to tell that intake counselor everything I did or was doing. I just broke down, and I told her everything, and she said, well, you're staying, and, you know, it's no big surprise. But there's a line in the book, and I think about this line a lot for whatever reason, and it says that our alcoholic life has become the only normal one. And it seems almost surreal today that we come in here, that I came in here and was wrestling with the fact of, am I really an alcoholic? Am I really powerless over alcohol? Is my life really that unmanageable? I've had some bad luck, but is it really that bad? Yes, it was that bad. It was so obvious to every single human being around me. You didn't have to be in my presence more than 5 or 10 minutes, and you knew something wasn't right. But I lived day in and day out with this insanity and this madness of what I know now to be alcoholism. And I watched my father, die of alcoholism when I was 16. He was 32, and and I'm going through that, and I'm like, it's nothing's clicking, right? It's just nothing's clicking in my head that this over here is the problem. I truly believe without the intervention of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have just died a victim. Just a series of bad luck. But alcoholism has another little trick, has another little twist of somewhere in there, I lost the ability to care. I just didn't care if I died. I didn't care if I didn't wake up. I didn't care, and then towards the end, that became the goal. And that goes so much against what Mother Nature, what God, what the Spirit of the universe, whatever the energy puts in us is the will to survive. And alcoholism took that from me. And it was so subtle. When they said it's cunning, baffling, and powerful, that wasn't too hard to get my head wrapped around. I sat in that treatment center for a few months, and I was just shocked. I was just in dismay at how my life had come to be. Because I'm a good kid, right? I mean, and parents were a little jacked up. Mom and dad both alcoholic. Everybody's alcoholic in my family. My mom's side's got a little twist of mental illness to make it even more exciting, and but I mean, there's a lot of love. It was I'm just a good kid, man. I was a farm kid. We killed 2 hogs every year, and I ate meat out of a salt box, and I'm just kind of a normal guy, right? And so to sit and look at how all that happened in a relatively short amount of time, and I had Bill Sanders was my sponsor for 30-something years, 36, 35 of those years, and he told me one thing that probably saved my life. He said, son, the disease of alcoholism is going to be your number one priority either way, whether you're in here or whether you're out there. And he allowed me to just kind of settle into, okay, I'm here, I'm in, I'm 18, you know what I mean? And I kind of settled into that. And he slowly, gradually, I was very fragile when I got here. I was never going to be that guy that for a sponsor to hammer on me. I'd have been out the door. And he knew, I believe God puts us together with people that we need. And he so gently took me, through these steps. And he helped me. We got into step 2, and he kind of helped me to see that, he understood, knew a little bit about me about that time, and realized that I was not an atheist. I just figured I was the guy, the book calls me the bewildered one, but I was just that guy. I figured I'd just burn that bridge with God, right? I mean, I'd done too much bad stuff for too long that we just, I'll be over here, God will be over here, and we'll just kind of go this way. But we're just kind of done, right? I burned that bridge. He helped me to see, thank goodness, that wasn't the case. But the second part of that, he gave sanity a definition. I've heard it a lot now, hadn't heard it then, and that was soundness of mind. And I thought, man, I've never had soundness of mind. I've never made good decisions. I've never been, like Bill mentioned, I've never been comfortable in my own skin, ever. I needed a drink when I took a drink. At 14 years old, before I'd taken a drink, I was ready to check out. I was done. And so drinking literally saved my life in the beginning. And at 18, 17, the end of 17, I was right back there again. I was ready to check out again. So I got into that third step, And of course, I had no idea. I took the steps so literal that it's like, how many times do you do this? Is this a one time? You get down on your knees, you say the third step prayer, and you're done. And it's like, no. I had a sponsee for a long time that he gave me the definition that I think of today, almost daily, about the third step, and that's made a decision to do something different. And I'm going to share with you, I think about these steps, I think about them in practical application. How do they show up in my life on the day-to-day? I've been sober for a little while now, obviously, and I don't think about drinking, I don't think about using, I don't think about any of that stuff anymore. But I do think about the steps every day. And I'll give you a quick, so I'm thinking about Nick, right? I'm thinking, so one day I'm sitting at the off-ramp at Holcomb Bridge Road, and I'm up on the wheel. I got one foot on the gas, I got one foot on the brakes, right? And I'm watching the light. And I am just so freaking keyed up, man, that literally my teeth are grinding. And I'm sitting there watching this light. I thought, man, you just need to relax. So I sat back in my seat, and I thought, when that light turns green, I'm going to intentionally sit here for 3 seconds to do something different, right? So as I sat back in my seat, the light turned green. I sat back in my seat, and a red Mustang blew through the intersection at about 80. And I was like, my God, I was in a cargo van, I'd have caught him right there. And I was like, wow, this really works. So I make decisions to do something different. Sometimes they're not quite that impactful, but it's a decision to do something different, right? And so I got into this, so Bill's like, all right, so we're going to write an inventory. And I said, all right, what was it supposed to look like? And I said, well, of course, there was an outline in the book. So I sat, I wrote. And then I wrote, and I'd tear it up because I was writing it how I wanted Bill to hear it, and because I'm a people pleaser, and so I tear that one up and start again, and I ended up writing about 90 pages. Some of it was just stream of consciousness writing, and some of it I followed the format as best I could, and once again, I'm taking a look at my life, and I'm thinking back to that. How did this become normal for me? Because there was a time in my life when all of this stuff that I just put on this paper was acceptable to me. And I lived this, right? Moment to moment, day in, day out. And I wasn't sure how the whole inventory process was going to work. I didn't know what in the world sharing this with Bill and to God. And, obviously I wrote it. But to sit, how is this? But it does. It just works. I walked out, we went up to the mountains, and I did that 5th step with him. I had a guy named Cliff's cabin, and it was about 8 or 9 hours, and I just sat and poured it out, and, man, I walked out of there a free man that day, still have my character defects. This is the first time I'd ever had a glimpse that it might be possible to be comfortable in my own skin, It was a glimpse, I got home, got back to work, got back in the life, but and I love Bill Wilson. He goes so far out of his way in so many different ways to not be redundant with his words when he writes a big book, right? There's one word he uses over and over, and that's it. It's glimpse. I got a glimpse. And these glimpses have what kept me sober. They've kept me alive in some cases, and they keep me wanting more. I'm in a new season of my life right now at 38 years sober. I'm 55 years old, and man, I've got as much pain. Now, you don't even know how hard I'm holding back these tears right now. But I feel like I'm 6 months sober again. I'm dealing with a lot, and don't know where this came from. I don't know why God said we're going to wait this long to deal with this now, but it's on my plate, and I'm dealing with it. And thank God I have all these tools. So I did that inventory, and then, looked at 6 and 7, and of course, like a lot of us do, it's like those are gimmies, right? I'll have that done that fast, right? That's an evening at best, and that's coffee before a meeting, and so I read it, and I read it in the big book, and I got to, I got thinking, what are my defects character? Because I thought, I probably got a few things in there somewhere to work on, but, I just couldn't see it. I just literally couldn't see it. So we went back through that 4-step, and it's like, well, maybe right here, so I started seeing some patterns, and humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. I wanted more. I'm a doer, and I was like, so I still, to this day, I ask God to, to remove these shortcomings from me, because I know I can't. My ritual that I go through, I recognize the steps inside of me today as a feeling more than like steps. Most of it starts with step 2. I can't. If I could have, I would have. I can't, right? So, I ask for God's help. And there's a line, there's a definition of humility that's in the 5th step, in the 12 and 12, and it's my favorite definition of humility, and it's a clear recognition of of who and what we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. Now live by that. That's easy. I can get behind that one. It's not too complicated. It's not too biblical. It's not too anything. It's just I can get behind that one. And that's where I put a lot of my defects. Bill used to say, "How's working on your character defects going?" I was like, "Well, I've got this." In retrospect, every defect that's ever left me without me seeing it. It's been a byproduct, typically a byproduct of helping you, but it's been a byproduct of me just trying to be a better man. And y'all gave me that. This was not an introspective kind of thing like I thought it was going to be, right? 8 steps 8 and 9. There is so much in step 8. I can't. I could talk for the next hour and a half on what I gleaned anyway out of step 8. There's some lines in there that talk about, violent mental twists that make me up as a man today, and they came from my actions in the past, and it was like, holy cow. I think honestly, I think I got more out of step 8 than I did step 9. But steps 8 and 9, it helped me to kind of clear away the wreckage of my past, because I was just like what the book says. Okay, why can't we just let bygones be bygones, right? I mean, that's over, that's done. And it's like, just like the alcoholic, I want to draw a line in the sand. That never happened, So I was like, all right, well, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I did, and I became willing. And Bill imparted that to me. He said, man, just be willing. And I'll share you this with you real quick. I had one, and I thought this girl that I'd done a lot of damage to. And I'd heard she'd moved to Texas. And I couldn't tell you to this day how I found out that she was still in Atlanta. But not only was she still in Atlanta, she was 1 mile from where I was sitting. And so I pulled over at a bank parking lot, and I called Bill. We had a little talk. Went down there, and I made that one. It was not quite as glamorous as I thought it might have been. She wasn't too happy to see me, so I kept it short. I honored that, and I kept it short. But, once again, I walked out of there, and I got that glimpse of what it actually feels like to be comfortable in my own skin, The last 3 steps, being our little maintenance steps that they call them, there's a line in the 10th step in the big book. It talks about neutrality, and man, what a freedom for a guy like me to experience anything that resembles neutrality. To be balanced. I'm a balanced human being today, and I got that from basically just reading that word. And it talks about alcohol. I apply it to my daily life. 11 and 12 have been, it's been an ongoing. I think about God. That fellow right there, Bill Hollingsworth. I listened to a tape by him one day. It's called "Practicing the Presence of God," and I didn't know I could bring God into my day in, day out, moment to moment life. So taught through prayer and meditation. To improve our conscious contact with God. I find that in just going out and doing what y'all tell me to do, what I know to do. 80% of my success in my life is putting my boots on in the morning and heading south to Atlanta to go to work. I can't tell you how many days I've had in the last 2 years that's the best that I could do. The absolute best that I could do was to get up and get out of the house and just go. Actually, I go east now, but I lived in Cumming for a long time, and it was just get up and get on 400 south. And that's the best I could do, and God took over from there. 12th step, the best thing that I can do is to be an example that this deal works. If you know me, it is my hope, it's my goal, it's my intent, it's deliberate with me that if nothing else, you walk away knowing that Alcoholics Anonymous works and that there's freedom to be had here. That's what I want you to take away from being in my presence. And I've often said, and you get a few little cockeyed looks when you say, when you're sitting in a meeting, if that newcomer walks through the door, there will be one person sitting in this meeting that has a message of hope and freedom, that has something that they might want. Because it's my challenge to myself, and it's always been my challenge to myself to keep my own house in order. Because you never know when that new guy comes in and slips in, sits down in the back, and starts looking around. You don't know he's there all the time. So I want them to know that there's at least one person in that room that's got a smile, and I'm happy about being sober today. So made it through this. I have no idea about time, but that's it. I'm done. Thank you.